Thank you very much, Katya. Baylar ve bayanlar, sizlere içtenlikle hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum. So, everybody, hi. You see what observation does. You learn the language of country. So thank you, Katya, and thank you all for attending our press conference this afternoon. And it is also a pleasure to see some of your faces again. So let me start by thanking my colleagues, Frank Schwaber, who is leading the delegation from Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, and Ambassador Peterson, head of mission here in Turkey. We are here to announce the main conclusions of our joint election observation mission to yesterday's second round of the presidential election here in Turkey. I would like to start by thanking all the Turkish people once again for their warm welcome in their beautiful country. It was a true pleasure to observe the general elections and to come for a second round of the presidential election, a first in the history of direct presidential elections in Turkey. Let me emphasize that the rule of law, the respect for fundamental rights and freedoms, are the very foundation of a well-functioning democracy. These interconnected pillars demand our unwavering attention, not only on election days, but also beyond. I will now share our main conclusions related to the second round of the presidential election as a continuation of the statement we delivered after the first round. The runoff presidential election held on 28 May offered voters a choice between genuine political alternatives, and voter participation remained high. However, as in the first round, biased media coverage and the lack of a level playing field gave an unjustified advantage to the incumbent. The election administration technically managed the election efficiently, but its lack of transparency and communication largely persisted. While the absence of regulation of several aspects of the second round did not provide legal certainty, positively, the Supreme Electoral Council issued multiple regulations to remedy some of these legal gaps. I wonder whether the microphone functions. It does? Can I continue? Yes, okay. In the subdued yet competitive campaign, candidates were able to campaign freely. However, harsher rhetoric, inflammatory and discriminatory language by both contestants, along with the continued intimidation and harassment of supporters of some opposition parties, undermined the process. In an environment with restrictions on freedom of expression, both private and public media did not ensure editorial independence and impartiality in their coverage of the campaign, detracting from the ability of voters to make an informed choice. Election day itself was generally calm and well administered. However, instances of deficient implementation of certain procedures, particularly during the vote count, were noted. There is much more to say. And before I pass the floor to my colleagues so they can provide their input, please allow me to sum up my overall impressions. In short, our assessment of this second round of the presidential election is similar to the one we shared with you 2 weeks ago. Concerns raised during the first round over the lack of a level playing field and the unfairness of the campaign remained unaddressed, with the incumbent president continuing to benefit from an unjustified advantage. Regretfully, the use of harsher rhetoric by both contesting sides that was discriminatory and inflammatory further polarized the political environment and Turkish society. I would like to applaud the democratic spirit demonstrated by the people during these past weeks. Voters came out in great numbers, including yesterday, and it is crucial that the winner makes genuine efforts to ensure the unity of Turkey. We stand ready to continue to support and cooperate with Turkey in its aspirations to strengthen its democracy based on the rule of law and respect for human rights. Thank you once again, and I will now give the floor back to you, Katja.
I come to the elections. I would like to use the opportunity, since I'm not here as a German, but I am a German, to remember on the arson attack in Germany 30 years ago on 5 Turkish citizens who were dead. Now, at the end, there were 17 others injured, and it was Gürsün İnce, 27 years, Hatice Genç, 18 years, Gülistan Öztürk, 12 years, Hülya Genç, 9 years, and Saine Genç, who was a small child, just 4 years, and I really would like to commemorate those who were innocently and brutally murdered. Masum Çave, Pasice, Katleden Deri, Anioras. I think it was necessary on a day like this. Now I would like to come to the elections. And I would like to thank as well, like Farah, our host country. And I would like to say that we had some incidents, and it was not easy for some of us not to go to polling stations in the first round, so it was better now. But I would like to say that there is still maybe some space for improvement. And I would like to underline that we are here due to normal procedures of our organization. Turkey is under monitoring, and because of this, we were here all together with around 40 people over the 2 rounds, in this round with 20 people. And I would like to thank for sure OSCE and ODIHR for the very, very good cooperation. We are not able to monitor elections without you, and it's very good that knowing that we have sometimes different things to do and to look into different things in such an elections, that we cooperate in this way, and we have our final statement here all together. The second round of the presidential elections has resulted in a clear winner. This we have to say. Nevertheless, the second round also took place, like the first round, in an environment that in many ways does not provide the conditions for holding democratic elections. Turkey must now implement, and I really would like to stress this, the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights, and above all, release Osman Kavala and Selahattin Demirtas. In the future, the Supreme Electoral Council must be committed to the greatest possible transparency in order to strengthen trust in the electoral process. So I really would like to underline that finally we have the same situation like in the first round. So we have always to look on the election day, and again there is a very clear winner. This is what we have to say on this election day, but we have to look into the environment, democratic environment in the country as well. And there it is like 2 weeks ago that we have to describe the media situation as very limited, that we see a lot of journalists in prison, and that we see a situation that causes self-censorship in this country. And on the ranking of Reporters Without Borders, Turkey is on one of the last places in the world ranking. At the same time, we have the difficult situation for the opposition. We have the former co-chair of the HDP imprisoned. We have the closing procedures about HDP, and we have a ruling against the mayor of Istanbul, Imamoglu, what at the end maybe prevent him from running as a candidate, as president in this country. But at the same time, people voted again, and a lot of people go to vote again, and we have a very high turnout again, and they could express their opinion. And at the end, if somebody asked me if this what the people throw into the ballot box, if this what they counted at the end, and this is the result of the elections, then I would say yes, it is. With some problems, yes, we saw the problems, but finally that's the outcome. Three things at the end. First, I really would like to urge, like Farah as well, to refrain after the campaign from violent speeches, hate speeches about against minorities, whether it's LGBTIQ from one side of the political spectrum, or if it's refugees, what we unfortunately saw in the second round from the other side of the political spectrum. Second, I really would like to urge the Central Electoral Council and those who are responsible, those who are the lawmakers, to follow the recommendations of the Venice Commission and to do everything to be as transparent as possible. This is very important in a country where there is some mistrust in this electoral procedure, that there is a lot of transparency by this organization. And finally, I have to strengthen again, in line with the outcome of the summit of the heads of states and governments of our organization, Council of Europe in Reykjavik, who met between the first round and the second round of the elections, that Turkey has to implement, like all other countries, the judgments and the rulings of the European Court of Human Rights. That means they have to release at first Osman Kavala, because we are in a procedure under Article 46.4 and we have to proceed on this. Thank you very much.
Let me join the others in welcoming you to this press conference, and thank you for your continued interest in our observation mission. Before I talk about our findings, I would like to thank the Turkish authorities for their invitation to observe. And I would also like to thank our partners in the International Election Observation Mission from the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, as well as the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, for the ongoing and excellent cooperation. I've been in Turkey with a team of election experts since late March, which has given us a considerable period in which to closely observe the run-ups to both rounds of the elections. For the last 2 weeks, we have continued our conversations with state officials as well as with the civil society, and have observed the work of the election administration as well as the tone and substance of the campaign. A particularly important aspect of our observation is our ongoing media analysis, to which I will return shortly. And with nearly 160 observers spread out across the country for the second round, it has been possible for us to make a statistical assessment of the voting process of the election day. Following our observations of this second round of presidential election, I'd like to go into a few points more in detail. First of all, I'd like once again to congratulate the people of Turkey for turning out to vote in such high numbers. Citizens were able to choose between real political alternatives in yesterday's runoff, and the campaign period was mostly peaceful. The campaign ahead of the second round was more low-key than the run-up to the first round, although it picked up as election day neared and candidates were able to campaign freely. The election administration, led by the Supreme Electoral Council, managed preparations for the second round efficiently in a short time frame, at the same time as finalizing the parliamentary vote. This is to be commended. However, the lack of transparency observed during the first round continued, with the national election authorities holding closed sessions and withholding the publication of most decisions, including on complaints related to the first round results. This further corroded trust in its work, which is key to citizens' confidence in the entire electoral system. Regrettably, I must also note the language used in the campaign over the last 2 weeks. It's been polarized and harsh, with accusations of collaboration with terrorist organizations by both political camps. In the same period, and of great concern, supporters of some opposition parties continue to face intimidation and harassment. The prosecution of journalists and bloggers continued ahead of the second round and included cases based on the legal prohibition of insulting public officials, further limiting freedom of expression. This is most disquieting, and it cannot be emphasized enough how important this freedom is for democracy. My final point, one of the 2 final points, concern media bias, which was clear in the first round and continued to be so ahead of the second. As I mentioned earlier, media monitoring is an integral part of our observation. And we noted ahead of the second round that many broadcasters did not meet their legal obligation to provide impartial coverage of the campaign. Neither did they give equal opportunities to the 2 presidential candidates, with the public broadcaster significantly favoring the incumbent, and a similar bias noticed in numerous private media outlets. The majority of these broadcasters also often blur the distinction between facts and opinions in their news coverage, selectively presenting their coverage in favor of a particular candidate. My second point, final point, is Election Day, which itself was mostly peaceful, although there were isolated instances of violence that were mostly directed against opposition supporters. Observers also noted cases of group or family voting, while the secrecy of the vote was potentially compromised due to the layout of some polling stations. While the presence of party observers and civil society representatives were positive, their activities were hindered in numerous cases. Finally, a number of procedural shortcomings were observed during the count. The points I have just mentioned are some of the most important from our ongoing observation, because, yes, indeed, I and the team of experts will remain in Turkey for several days still to observe the aftermath of the election and how any complaints or appeals are dealt with. For many other aspects of our observation, I will recommend that you take a copy of our report together with the press release on your way out, and you will find some interesting figures in that report. And then, last but not least, I would like to express my gratitude to the team working with me here in Ankara, as well as long and short-term observers spread out across the country. Without you, there would be no election observation. Thank you very much.